you and I are both speakers. We've given a ton of speeches in our life. The more you do that and the more like accidents you have or mistakes you made or what, and then you like fix it in the moment, the better you get at being able to do that. And so you have confidence, not that I'm going to go out on the stage and kill it. Your confidence is that if you screw it up, you know how to get yourself out of there.
Oh my God, can we go down this path? I love this so much.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know how much, you know, so I think you're such an amazing speaker. I've seen you speak in real life. I've seen you on, freaking next level, girl. I haven't actually had that many speaking gigs. And
really?
Yeah, I think right now I've had 4 and you were one of them on your panel.
Yeah, you were so good.
Thank you. They're so kind.
Oh, okay. I thought you did it all the time.
No. And thank you. Okay. This is so beautiful because I need to tell you the first time because Tom kept telling me, you know, my husband very well. So, you know, my husband, me and him have a relationship where we are very honest with each other because I want my husband to get to his goals. And so if I see him getting in his own way, it's my responsibility as his best friend, as his business partner, and as his wife to tell him, and vice versa. So our goal is impact on a global scale. Tom one time came up to me and he's like, babe, you know, you keep turning down these speaking gigs and I just need you to know it's not moving you towards the goal you want. Now, look, if you don't want a life of speaking, that's your choice. But it's my duty to tell you, you say you want this and you keep saying no to speaking gigs. So I really sat down. I was like, okay, let me really assess this. Does going on stage and speaking align with impact, my mission? Yes. Okay, great. Why am I not going and speaking? Because I'm petrified. Because the voice in my head is telling me, you are terrible, Lisa. You're going to freeze. You're going to bomb. People love Tom. People know how good your husband is, how good all your friends are. They're going to compare you, right? So the voice like starts going round and round of all the things of why. Now, here's the thing. It's the ego, right? The ego is protecting you. She doesn't want you to mess up. She wants you to be loved. She wants to feel good about herself. So she knows, hey, if you go on the stage on bomb, you're about to really freaking dent and bruise your ego. So now I go, in this situation, what's more important, my ego or my goals?
Yes, girl. It's a good quote. That's a good quote. And if you're listening to this and you didn't write that down on a Post-it and stick it somewhere, you're missing out on a moment. That's good.
And it was in that moment where if I can be that blunt with myself, now I can at least say, make a decision. Because the truth is, and I always want to say, there's no judgment. There's no right or wrong. It is my life. If I choose that I want my ego, that is more, I want to feel better about myself than going on stage, it is my life. So I want people to ask themselves that with no judgment. And the reason why you do that is in 5 or 10 years, if I turn around, Rach, and I'm like, you know what? I really didn't impact as many people as I wanted to. I can say it's because you chose your ego.
Yeah. And it is a choice. And I do think that there are a lot of people who are just sort of like, I don't know, existing in the comfort zone or like the nothingness or whatever, and don't take responsibility for the fact that not making a decision is also you making a decision. It's making a decision in opposition of whatever the goal is, to sort of stay here and stay stuck in this place, but it is your choice. Like no one's going to magically come up to you and just be like, here it is. Here's the dream. Here's everything you've ever wanted right here in front of you. You actually have to take steps. And I love the idea of what are the goals? And is this, okay, wait, I have to tell you this story because this is great. If you have not yet read it, there is a book that I'm obsessed with. I'm telling everybody about, called The Gap versus the Gain. Have you heard of this?
I have heard it. I haven't read it yet.
Check it out. You'll read it in a sitting. It's so good. Very simple, but like such an aha. And essentially, the idea is that high achievers are constantly measuring themselves between where they are and where they want to be instead of measuring backwards. So if you started to measure between where you are and where you were, that's when you see incredible momentum. You'll love it. You will love it. But there's this line, or there's a story in the book that I am obsessed with, that I wrote down on the board, that you'll write down. Everyone will. It's so good. Where I'm going to butcher these dates, but just go with me. The rowing team in England, the English rowing team, had not won an Olympic medal in rowing since like 1904. I don't know, a very long time. And every year they try and they would get so close and they wouldn't medal. And so they made a decision like, this is the year we are going to the Olympics and we are going to win gold and this is what we're going to do. And they had one simple rule, one question that determined every single thing that they did every day of their life. Everyone in the crew asked this one question: will this make the boat go faster? That's it. Will this make the boat go faster? If they were by themselves or in a group, will this make the boat go faster? You want to go to a party tonight? Will this make the boat go faster? No. You want to have an extra donut? Will this make the boat go faster? No. There's 50 more reps that we need you to do. I don't want to do that. Will this make the boat go faster? And I love the simplicity of that. It's like what you said. It's like, yes or no. Is this getting you closer to the goal, or is this you staying here? But either way, own that this is your decision.
So true. Because here's the thing, I can get in my own way. Like my emotions can absolutely take over. And so for me, making things binary actually allow me to make a decision instead of getting lost in my own emotions. And so it's making the decision, but then there's a massive gap between deciding and then actually doing, right? It's like, okay, I've decided I'm going to speak. But the fear of getting on stage, when you have anxiety and all of that, like, you can't just say, well, get on stage. Maybe you can, but I was like, I don't know how to actually get on stage. So let me come up with a game plan. And this is why, like with the radical confidence, I had zero confidence, but I needed a game plan to get on stage. So the very first thing is you have to accept a speaking gig, or you have to reach out and get a speaking gig. That's step one. So I basically said, I will get caught up in my emotions if someone asks me. So team, the next person that asks me, just say yes. And that was my first, right? Make it binary. I couldn't change my mind. I told the team, you're saying yes. Now, the first people that reached out happened to be bloody TEDx. And so I was like, really?
Isn't the universe hilarious? Isn't it so funny how that works?
I was like, oh my God. So now, of course, I'm even more in my own head. And this is where I was like, okay, this voice is very powerful. This voice is very destructive. I've been here before. I call her can I swear on this podcast? I can't remember.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. So it's like this bitch in my head has kept me back for so long. And so she's really trying to hold me back now from like creating my dreams. So how on earth, right now, she's like my kryptonite. How can I turn her into my superpower? And so I realized, just like a friend, just like what I said about Tom, sometimes a friend is there to say the hard thing, even when you don't want to hear it. And I was like, what if my negative voice, what if the bitch in my head was like my BFF? Like what, how could I, by saying that, how can I listen to her in a different way? And so I was like, all right, instead of trying to block her out, it brings up this anxiety in me. Let me put my arm around her. Let me cuddle her. Let me give her a cup of tea and say, homie, what do you got? What do you have to tell me? And then I just sat and listened. And what she was telling me is that I have zero idea how to give a keynote. And here's the thing, she's right. I don't know how to give a keynote. And so, okay, great. Thank you for letting me know. I actually have zero idea how to do it. So how can I? And so what I started to do is started to put a plan together of how I'm going to prepare. I did a speech. I wrote down a blueprint of how I was going to practice, because I knew I could get my emotions, could get all worked up. The imposter syndrome can come up. And now I'm never going to freaking get on stage. So I was like, all right, step one, Lisa, you're going to have your husband coach you. Great. I had him coach me. Then I was going to write my speech. Then I was going to practice. Then I was going to record it and listen to myself. Then I was going to read it to him. Then I was going to read it in front of my team. So I created a blueprint. So every step, every time that voice, that anxiety, those nerves came up, I was like, well, you got to keep going, Lisa.
Yeah.
And then the final thing is getting on stage. So music, like when I was at your event, I was like headphones, put on my hype song. Everyone needs their hype song. And then my jewelry is like, in fact, you got kids, Rach. When you give your kids a cape, what do?
Their whole body changes. They become a different version of themselves.
Now, since when did we beat that out of ourselves as adults?
Yeah.
You know, so it's like you see how a kid can put on a cape and all of a sudden they're fist in the air and they believe to their core that they're Superman or Wonder Woman or whoever. So I was like, well, what if I could use this to my advantage to help me boost my confidence to get on stage? So the things that I always wear, actually have a Batgirl necklace on today, but like Wonder Woman, all these things I practice. Repetition creates habit, right? So every time I started to put on the necklace, a little cheapy thing, I started to repeat to myself, you're like Wonder Woman, Lisa. You're like a badass. So I kept repeating that. Now, eventually, you do that enough times. Now, when I put on my necklace, I feel like Wonder Woman. And then my boots, I have these knee-high boots. And so I started calling them my bad bitch boots. And every time I would put them on, I would zip them up and I'd be like, yeah, your bad bitch boots. Like you can even see like my face and like my energy changes. And so what I did is, so when I got right before stage and I'm putting on my armor and I'm putting on like my cuffs and my necklace and I'm doing my hair and I'm listening to the music and I zip up my bad bitch boots, I'm prepared for battle. And so now I've literally cultivated an emotion that I didn't feel. I deliberately went in with every intention. And then the last thing, to your point, is what the freaking happens when you're on stage and you freeze or you fail. That was like the last thing that my voice was warning me against, that Lisa, you will get booed off stage, or even worse, Rach. You know, when someone have you ever seen someone on stage mess up and like they freeze and then the whole audience like takes like that, like it's like the air has been sucked out the room,
right
you feel bad for them. And so that was a worry. I didn't want to freeze. And then now I've changed the dynamic, and instead of empowering people, now everyone feels badly for Lisa Billy. I was like, I lost them if that happens.
Right.
So I went in, I was like, you need a game plan, Lisa, for what happens if and when, to your point, when you fail. And it's one of my chapters in my book that I call When the Shit Hits the Fan, Wear Goggles. Because the point isn't to worry about if the shit is going to hit the fan or not, because when you try anything new, guaranteed something will fail and the shit will hit the fan. So the question isn't how to prevent it. The question is, what do you do when it happens? You wear goggles, you protect yourself.
Right.
Makes it easier to clean the mess up. So I said, what are my goggles? And so the goggles were, okay, if everyone freezes, number one, when kids fall on the floor, they look to their parents to see how they're going to react, right? Mirroring. We know mirroring works. Yes. So now I'm like, the mirroring. Okay, so if I laugh, would people just mirror my laugh? And I was like, maybe they would. All right, Lisa. Yeah. That's the game plan. You're so petrified, but you've got a game plan now. So I get on stage. I do everything that I've just said, Rach. I get prepared. I really refine it. I don't get in my own way. So I ignore my emotions because I've got this game plan. I get on stage and like 3 minutes in, I'm telling this whole story about how about my grandmother. And I'm like, so when my dad gave birth to my grandmother, and I pause and I'm like, well, that would be weird. And I just started laughing. Everyone started laughing and I moved on. And in that moment, girl, if I didn't have a game plan, that voice would have taken over. The heart-inducing, nerves that I had would have surfaced, and I would have completely, and I probably would never have gotten on stage again.
Yeah, that's so good. I think too, I mean, if anyone's listening to this and like wanting to be a speaker, because we've been talking about that a lot, one of the things that it's like the human nature of it. Like, I love that the idea was laughter. My thing is, I still sometimes get nervous, and I'll just say it. I'll just say, I'm out of breath. Like I'm my heart's pounding, or hey guys, I know my voice is shaking. Like, give it a minute. It'll calm down or whatever. Cause anytime you do a new big thing, it's so overwhelming. You're like, oh crap. But I think my fallback is always just like, it's human nature. When people see someone on stage, you're literally doing something that 95% of the world's population would have a freak out if they had to do. So the fact that you're even up there, I think, makes you like a superhero. So I love the idea of having a backup plan. And I think whether you're presenting, doing a presentation at work or church, or you have to, whatever it is, the idea of like, you're going to give yourself an out, because it's so funny you say the TED thing. I remember years ago going to a TED talk, whatever, where you see a bunch of speakers, and this woman, she was killing it. She was doing so well. And then all of a sudden she just forgot whatever she was supposed to say next. And she did the worst thing you can do as a speaker, which was repeat the last 3 sentences, which was the moment as the audience that you realized she had just rehearsed this over and over and over and over. It was almost like you rewound the tape and then she got to the same spot, still didn't know what the next line was, and had no plan, and ran off stage. And this is at TED. And it was just so mortifying. And if she had just gathered her wits, you're not on that stage if you're not an expert about whatever you're talking about. So if she just sort of had gathered herself and started talking about anything, it'll come back. But again, it's like if you don't have the confidence to know what to do next, if you don't have a blueprint, if you don't have a roadmap, the option is to run away. And yeah, who knows? Maybe she never got on stage again because she didn't have any sort of plan.
And that's the thing, right? Is like, how do I perpetually move forward? Because we are going to fail. We are going to embarrass ourselves, And it's like, I used to say to him, it's like, oh my God, I don't want to fail because it's going to say something about, who I am. And some, it says something about me. And what I realize is it does say something about me. It says that I care about my life enough to take a chance. That's what failure says about me.